Hi, hello. This is as always, take two of recording the voiceover. See, I made it all the way through the voiceover last time, and I felt it went pretty well. And then I realized somehow it was the wrong length. I don't know how, because I make these voiceovers while watching the video play. So I don't know why it was a minute too long. I have no idea what I've done, but uh, let's try and figure out where I was going with this. So I'm returning to actually rendering my digital pieces for at least this week. Maybe not next week. Maybe there'll be nothing next week. Who knows? But this time I'm rendering it. It's not just going to be a sketch, which means I spent about 2.5 hours on this one, give or take. And the way I went about rendering it and drawing it and all that was I was consciously revisiting a style of rendering and drawing and making and stuff that I used a while ago. It was back in the second half of 2022, which does not feel that long ago. But I've returned to it. So the what really kind of solidifies this method is that it's very light on the amount of brushes you use. It is technically 2. You might consider it 1. Because this really lives or dies on the default round brush in Procreate. So it's the default round, and then I made a copy of it where I tapered it. That's it. Because usually it just does the opacity kind of change with pressure. That I'm like, what if also it tapers? So there's 2 different ones. For most of it, I use the standard, and then with the hair and the eyelashes and stuff, you'll see I use the tapered ones. Ones, plural. It's 1. It's not plural. And so to blend it, the tedious, annoying part of this process is to blend it, you kind of have to just color pick. So my layers kind of look like there was the sketch layer and then a separate hair layer. And then there's a separate, color layer underneath the sketch layer. And I think there's a separate hair color layer underneath the hair layer. Now I've added a layer on top of the sketch but below the hair. And that's what I'm currently color picking and drawing on. So, yeah. You could just do this all in one layer, but making it separate layers makes it more editable. And you can go back more easily because you can erase the part that you just were color picking on if you feel like you've really lost the plot and kind of changed the colors too much. I didn't have to do that here, but I just like the option, so I tend to keep the sketch and the base colors around. So I was kind of trying to get more interesting colors in the skin because this is a very beigey browny neutral color palette I'm working with here, but I ended up toning it down because it was a little too much. Purple and blue in the skin. I think a lot of the orangey tones stay though. I keep forgetting what I've said and what I haven't. That's why I hate having to do it over again. But here I am working on the nose. I actually really like how the nose turns out and how the mouth turns out. It's pretty good. I struggle a lot more with her eyes, which are, I would, probably argue are more important. I like the style of them where there's kind of it's almost straight across the top, but then most of the roundness is held in the bottom of the eyes, kind of the shape of the eye. And how the irises are not fully surrounded. I had fun with that. But, the thing about eyes is you kind of have to make them look like they go together. Which I think I mostly did. You also have to make them go with the face, which I'm less confident in. But I really like kind of the blocky aspect of, how it works when I'm rendering like this. Because I'm color picking, I'm kind of scribbling down for a little bit. But because I'm using lighter pressure, it's not fully opaque, so it kind of blends the colors. That's really the method to this this whole thing. That's the trick to it. So, yeah, just kind of bumping around, fiddling with everything, doing my best. Another issue with kind of this style of rendering is it's hard to describe because it goes together really fast at first when you're doing the sketches and when you're doing making your color decisions, which are really interesting things to talk about. And then I just end up here on the voiceover being like, yep, we're still cleaning it up. We're still cleaning it up. It's like so much of the drawing process is just cleaning up what's already there, and it's kind of boring to talk about. It's also kind of boring to do. I like how it looks. And so it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I'm on the fence. Here I am kind of fiddling with the eyes because I felt like that eye had kind of grown on me when I was messing around and cleaning things up. That's another thing. Because you're going over your lines, you can really easily shift things around just a little bit. Like large changes would be more difficult. Like the small shifts can happen, and sometimes they happen accidentally, which is not super fun, but yeah, so it's something you just have to keep present, keep thinking. You can't just like mush colors in, but I really like how it looks. I there's a reason I stopped doing it. It just was so tiring, especially when, like I did here, you accidentally start putting the overtop layer on the hair layer, the hair color layer. Yeah, I had dinner in there and I came back and I realized later that I'd accidentally put stuff on the same layer that shouldn't have been on the same layer. I realized that when I was cleaning up the shoulders, that her hair color and the shoulder area was on the same layer. It wasn't that big of a deal because most of what I did that would have been really a nightmare if it was on the same layer I'd already done. So I'm just kind of adding a little more detail to her hair. I'm adding a layer over top for these swooshies. I just felt like it was a little too flat. This is definitely a style where like the hair is less critical. It's not very emphasized. But I still wanted to have a little more dimension in it. And here I am doing her eyelashes. They're surprisingly subdued for me. I usually go full eyelashes, but here we are. It's a bit of a thing. I just didn't feel like that would look right with her. Oh, also I try to sign it and I have no idea where a signature would look good, so I give up and I'm like, just let it be. No one needs to know I made this.